Dead Man's Wonderland isn't the type of anime to show up in people's top 10 lists, or to have thousands of thirst traps on TikTok. It's not loud, it's not hopeful, but is one of many anime that deserved so much better than it got. Thanks in part to the cruel twist, Tohoku earthquake, the devastating disaster that struck just as the anime was trying to find its footing. Not only delaying production, but also shifting the nation's attention away from the series, left to flounder in the wake of the real world tragedy. This is a story about trauma in both its creation and its narrative, about being thrown into hell with no explanation or care, and about watching your world shatter only to realize no one is coming to fix it. On the surface, it might look generic. A school kid falsely imprisoned, becoming the main star of the show. He has powers where he uses his blood to fight in tournaments. But at the heart, Dead Man Wonderland is about two kids reconnecting. This is the part of the video where I would usually give you a quick introduction to the story before diving into the production issues. But the best way for me to describe the setup for this story is to simply describe what happens to Ganta Igarashi. Ganta Igarashi starts Dead Man Wonderland as a normal 14-year-old. A bit awkward, average in every single conceivable capacity, and just trying to enjoy school with his friends. But his life is ripped apart in an instant. His entire classroom is massacred by a mysterious floating figure, later known as the Red Man. And due to the fact that he was the only survivor, with no supporting evidence and a public desperate for someone's head, Ganta becomes the perfect scapegoat. He's sentenced to death and sent to Dead Man's Wonderland, a prison where justice is little more than spectacle. What makes Ganta compelling isn't what happened to him, it's how he reacts. It is so genuine. At first, he's overwhelmed. He cries, he panics, he clings to the idea that this is all a misunderstanding. He's not a badass. He's not a shonen protagonist. He's a scared, terrified kid trapped in a nightmare that only keeps getting worse. As I said, an amazing starting point. But let's get back to that later. And for now, well, let's go back to 2011. Dead Man Wonderland aired at a strange time in anime. The industry was shifting. Darker stories were finding homes in mainstream audiences. Things like Parasite and Death Note were becoming above the mainstream. But the production pipelines were still rough, especially for riskier titles. However, Dead Man had everything fucking going for it. This new shiny studio that had two absolute humongous bangers was backing them. Studio Manglobe had already made quite the name for themselves with visually bold animes like Eco Proxy and Samurai Champloo. And my personal favorite, which comes 5 years after this, Gangsta. Look up there if you want to watch that video. They aren't afraid to be weird. That's one thing I will say about Manglobe, and that makes them the perfect studio for this project, for better or worse. But enough yapping, let's get into the anime. The anime, for the most part, takes place in Dead Man's Wonderland, the prison. It isn't just a prison, it's a fully privatized theme park, run for profit and public entertainment, built on the ruins of Tokyo following a catastrophe of a great Tokyo earthquake. It serves as a symbol of recovery for the public, but within those walls, a grotesque dystopia hiding behind mascots and colorful rides. It's marked as a rehabilitation facility that funds itself through tourism and televised games, where inmates perform dangerous stunts, but in reality, it's a human zoo, where pain, fear, and death are sold to the highest bidder, at least within the private games. The first one we see is an obstacle course lined with hidden traps that, for example, kill participants regularly, and the winners are only rewarded with temporary safety and cast points. Get into that later. And they can't just actively avoid every game. Every prisoner wears a collar that constantly has a timer ticking down, and when it hits 0, they die. The only antidote, a strange artificially flavored sweet, which must be consumed every 3 days in order for them to stay alive. Don't ask me how the candy affects the timer. It's probably something to do with their blood. I do not fully understand. Prisoners can use cast points. It's a currency that is only exchanged within the prison. They can do this by working jobs, winning games, or gambling for their lives. These points can be exchanged for basically anything. Food, upgrades to their living conditions like TV, couches, and fridges, or the life-saving candies that they need to live. Dead Man Wonderland is blessed and cursed by its polarizing sidecast. Upon entering Wonderland, Ganta is quick to make two friends, one of which with unprompted loyalty and an unfounded familiarity. Her name is Chiro. She's strange, pale, and a girl with a childlike personality, and incredibly strong and agile. For, I think, a 13-year-old? She claims to have a deep connection with Ganta's past and harbors a dark secret all her own. That dark secret being the thing that links her to Ganta, and maybe just the origins to Dead Man Wonderland itself. Chiro is heartwarming. Honestly, every time she's on screen, it lightens up your day. And she's probably Ganta's only true friend, because the other is Yo Takami, Ganta's roommate and apparent friend. Though he hides his true motives, Yo is desperate to earn cast points to help someone, his sister, and he gets stuck. His main character conflict is when he's stuck between loyalty to saving his sister and the guilt he feels from the acts he performs to get there. He is bribed by Ganta's lawyer. Tamaki poses as Ganta's court-appointed defense attorney, but in reality, he's an assistant to the warden of Dead Man's Wonderland, and one of the central villains in the story. He pretends to represent Ganta in court, but his real goal is to ensure Ganta is found guilty and sentenced to Dead Man's Wonderland. He fakes evidence, rigs the trial, and manipulates the justice system in order to send Ganta to prison, not just for punishment, but because Takami knows Ganta is special and wants him. He does this by forging a video of Ganta's confession. The prison itself is split into different blocks labeled A to F, which house the general population. These areas are traditional prison structures with dormitories, cafes, and workstations. So only traditional if you live in Denmark. But beneath that lies something far more secretive and sinister. The G block, an area inaccessible to most, unlisted on official maps, and only spoken about in hushed rumors by inmates who suspect its existence. The head warden of the facility did not know of its existence. G-Block is where the dead men are kept. Prisoners who possess a rare ability known as the Branch of Sin. These individuals can control and weaponize their own blood, turning it into blades, projectiles. These powers are not a result of mutation or training. Barry Allen didn't get shocked with chemicals in his hand to become a branch of sin. But it is caused by a mysterious event linked to the Great Tokyo Earthquake, one shrouded in conspiracy. These dead men are forced to participate in the Carnival Corpse, a secret underground gladiatorial pit where they battle each other in one-on-one brutal fights for the amusement of the elite and rich, sponsors of the prison. Losers are subjugated to gruesome punishments such as organ removal or forced amputation. All of this broadcasted internally for profit and research. This is why he wanted Ganta in the prison. Ganta is a dead man, the first one to exist outside of the disaster, linking not only Ganta to that event, but the Red Man himself. A mystery that the narrative unfolds and explains throughout its narrative. Something I don't want to fully cover, but needless to say, it's worth the watch. This mysterious figure, the Red Man, the apparent source of the Branch of Sin, is a living enigma, haunting the inner structure of the prison, attacking Ganta upon multiple occasions. Ganta can't recover meeting Shiro, so who's to say if he has a past with the Red Man? Dead Man's Wonderland was created by a mangaka duo, Gensi Katakoa, the primary storyteller and scriptwriter for the manga, known for constructing complex, emotionally raw narratives. Her overall style focuses on trauma, isolation, survival, and moral ambiguity. This is apparent across all her works, by the way. Kazuma Konduyu's art only lent more depth to her stories, clearly designing and depicting the characters and settings she created. He's known for his gritty line work and expressive facial expressions. His chaotic action layouts were essential to its manga's tone. Like, genuinely, the manga is such a better experience than the anime. The pair already built a reputation for emotionally charged and complex stories through their work on Eureka 7. Something I haven't read, but from what I've researched, this success gave them the chance to pitch an original series all their own in 2007. Thus, Dead Man's Wonderland was born. Now, I'm so used to saying it was serialized in Weekly Shonen Jump, but it was serialized in Katoa's Shoten Shonen Ace. If I got that wrong, I apologize profusely, but I've tried 100 times. A magazine that is known for edgier shonen titles and some seinen. The magazine suited their style of storytelling. Despite its niche appeal, it found a strong early audience, particularly between older teens. So it was far more popular among seinen readers than shonen readers. It was praised for its art, world depth, and refreshing refusal to follow power fantasy tropes. By 2010, the manga had solidified its place as a cult classic. Not a chart-topping phenomenon, not like the last video's One Punch Man, but a steady and respectable position. However, according to Japanese retailer reports, early volumes of the manga sold in the low 4-digit range. This was despite its anime-bound status. But by 2011, the year the anime aired, the series had climbed to the 20th best-selling manga, with its final volume reaching approximately 145,000 copies sold. This shows a clear upward trajectory in popularity from the show, not to mention the English copies, which sold out a few days after release, and the demand for the series can even be seen to this day, the year of 2025, with eBay listings going for more than the original price for second-hand product. On paper, everything seemed aligned for success. The source material was strong, as talked about before, and the fan base was growing. The studio behind it, Manglove, had previously created those 2 hits I talked about before. Everything was looking good, but beneath the surface, production was troubled from the very beginning. Manglove was already facing financial strain before the green light of Dead Man's Wonderland. The recent projects had been stylistically successful, but as you may have known from my gangster video, they were commercial flops, and the studio badly needed a win. Instead of investing in a long-form adaptation that could do the manga justice, and that was the standard for the early 2000s, the series was restricted to just 12 episodes. Now, sort of the modern standard. This decision, along with many other, proved fatal. The manga's intricate plot, emotional depth, and philosophical tension were built for slow burn and reveal, not a rush job. Scenes were switched up, character arcs were compressed or skipped entirely in some cases. The story barely scratched the surface before the final episode. And of course the manga readers were upset. That's the core audience realistically. And if it doesn't adapt the manga in a new way that also is loyal to the original, then they're not going to find any value in watching it. But this wouldn't have been an issue. Personally, I like the anime. It's still so good. Stylistically, in ways, it's better than the manga. If you ever see any of the color panels in the manga, Shiro is a weird flesh color, but in the anime, they make her white. They make her design a duo colored layout. She is white and she is red, and that's all her color palette needs, and genuinely it's really pleasant. I personally thought that the anime was of a quality where it would do well. That is, if it wasn't for its unfortunate timing. The anime literally couldn't release at a worse time. It premiered in April 2011, just 1 month after the devastating Tohoku earthquake and tsunami. That disaster left thousands dead, and much of Japan reeling. It's a tragic event that I don't want to talk too much about, in fear that I might get something wrong and upset someone who is affected by the tragedy. In a fortunate coincidence, the manga and anime story begins with a massive earthquake that destroys Tokyo suddenly. The show's apocalyptic imagery and themes of mass destruction hit far too close to home. Several Japanese broadcasters delayed the episodes and censored some of the content entirely. What was meant to be a breakout premiere depicting a horrible disaster instead was met with understandable hesitation and unease. Even without the tragic context, the show struggled to find its footing. Choppy animation quality at times, some scenes looked rushed and they were skipped. I'm sure for Manglobe and for many of the anime publishers, it must have felt like a sore spot, uneager to fund a second season. Fans waited though, hoping a follow-up for what never came. Manglobe quietly moved to other projects, and within 4 years, the studio filed for bankruptcy, with closure in 2015, a month after its last anime release, Gangsta. Any remaining hope of continuing Dead Man's Wonderland died. By then, the anime had already faded away, only to be remembered by the few more as an open wound than a great anime. Dead Man's Wonderland is a tragedy in more than one way. A tragedy of justice, of identity, or of trust shattered and never to be repaired. But also tragedy of storytelling. A series that was never given the time, space, or care it needed to bloom. Within the world of this anime, pain was currency. Blood was a spectacle. Survival was the only form of rebellion you could muster. And in the case of the show itself, its dead men reflects its production and final resting place. Wounded, manipulated, and put on display only to fade to nothing before it could ever find its voice.